Did you hit the record button?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Charitable Solutions webinar, High Impact Advanced CGAs, Unlocking the Full Value of Your Donors' Non-Cash Assets, with, of course, a few bonus case studies. I'm Barbara Yeager, the Director of Publications and Research for Charitable Solutions. Before we begin, I want to remind you of a few operational details. This webinar is being recorded, and you'll receive a link to the recording after the program, but you won't receive the slides as a separate document. You can use the Q&A prompt at any time during the program to ask questions. We'll answer as many as possible during the webinar, but we'll also answer them in a document that we'll send to you along with the recording after the program. All of our recordings, by the way, are archived both on our website at charitablesolutions.com and also on our YouTube channel. So anytime you need to go back and look for another webinar on this topic, you can certainly go there and do that. You know, many of our webinars, including today's program, could be titled, "You Can Do That, We Can Help If You Need Us." So let's just have a quick reminder of all the charitable solutions that Charitable Solutions has to offer. John, you want to show that first slide?
There you go.
Yeah, so we're in the business of making gifts happen that wouldn't otherwise, as you see there on the slide. So Charitable Solutions supports the Decami Foundation, which is a donor-advised fund, which will kind of participate in the liquidation of non-cash assets. Sometimes those assets turn into gift annuities, which the National Gift Annuity Foundation can manage for you if you don't have your own gift annuity program. We also handle some charitable gift annuity risk management services and charitable appraisals, which are very important in all kinds of gifts, especially non-cash gifts. We do programs like we're doing today, which is a continuing education program, mostly in this case for charitable gift planners, but also for advisors and all kinds of organizations. So if you happen to need some CE, please give Brian Klontz a call and he will work that out with you. And Brian also manages the Emergency Assistance Foundation, which provides emergency assistance funds for corporations that want to help their team members out in case of flood or, you know, fires or personal emergencies of all kinds. So that's just an interesting side light of the Charitable Solutions family. On the next slide, you can see the activity through 2024. Everything's ticking up. This slide's going to be especially interesting in 2025. Brian loves to call attention to the amount of cryptocurrency that's being donated because that's something that's really on the increase these days. And I'm sure John will let you know how the CGA activity is going at Charitable Solutions also, since that's not recorded here on this slide. And now I'm going to turn you over to John Severson. He is the VP for gift annuities at both Charitable Solutions and the National Gift Annuity Foundation. He is a CFP and an accredited estate planner with a 40-plus year career helping people do what they want to do with their money, most especially if they want to give it to charity. And you know, I'm sure most of you know, gift annuities have been around for going on 200 years. The first one was issued in 1831 by Yale in exchange for, guess what? A non-cash asset, specifically a collection of paintings of the American Revolution by John Trumbull. And you can see a picture of them here on the walls of the Yale University Art Gallery. My understanding is that John Trumbull and his wife are actually resting in peace under the floor of that very gallery. So hopefully not reaching up the dead hand too often. But we are here in the spirit of that gift to tell you what's new in the world of gift annuities. They're a tried and true solution, but there are always some new developments. John, I'll turn them over to you to tell all about that.
Okay, thank you, Barbara. Well, hello, everyone. Hope you're having a great day. Our agenda for today is we're going to first talk about various types of CGAs. You think there's only one? No, there's many types. And then we're going to talk about the opportunities you might have to fund CGAs with illiquid assets, which is kind of unusual. And we'll look at various eligible types of illiquid assets that you can use and your donors can use. Then we'll talk about the process of actually funding a CGA with non-cash assets. And we're going to talk about some key considerations for the nonprofit issuing these CGAs or non-cash assets and the risks involved in doing that. And then we'll follow with some case studies. Plus, we have a couple other bonus items that we're going to tack on to the back end here today for a little surprise. So why don't we get started by talking about types of CGAs. Now, I know many people on this call have been working with CGAs for years, maybe decades, and others might be brand new to the industry, particularly to the plan giving arena. So remember, a CGA is pretty simple. It's a 3-page agreement between a charity and a donor. The donor passes assets to the charity hangs on to them, makes income payments back to the donor for the rest of their life, no matter how long they live. And at the donor's death, then the charity gets to keep what's left, hopefully, in the account. It's that simple. In my financial planning career, I did a lot of work with remainder trusts for higher net worth families. And of course, I just really believe that a CGA is kind of a simplified CRT. It's a cousin. I would often tell clients that if you have a simple situation, a CGA will solve your problem. If it's complex, then you do a CGA in steroids. They call it share remainder trust, which we aren't going to talk about today, but they're very parallel, both as life income agreements. Well, as we talk about the various types of CGAs, the most popular, of course, is an immediate charitable gift annuity, where the annuitant starts receiving income payments within the first year of contribution. But for some younger donors in their maybe 50s or 60s, it might make sense to set the gift annuity up today as a deferred gift annuity. They make the contribution today, receive the tax deduction today for doing that, and then defer the income until 3, 4, 5, 6 years later when they may be retiring and want that extra income supplement, but they had the funding for it today and needed the deduction today. Of course, a flex deferred annuity is just like a deferred annuity, except you not only set a date that you could start your payments, but you can actually flex it and keep moving that out for up to 10 years beyond that point if you're a little uncertain. Pretty useful planning tools for people in planning their retirement. The Impact CGA was invented by the University of Pennsylvania, and I learned about it on a webinar that they were putting on a couple of years ago, and they said, hey, you can use that if you want. We don't have rights to it. So I love it because an Impact CGA is a traditional charitable gift annuity set up whereby the donor then takes the income payments and sends it back to the charity to satisfy a multiple year pledge, largely for a capital campaign. That's where they're often used. So I love it because you're combining a capital campaign call with a plan giving call and killing 2 birds with 1 stone and possibly introducing that donor to the whole topic of gift planning when they just thought they were going to help you build a building. The new testamentary CGA, well, they're not new, but they've been real popular since 2019. Remember what happened in 2019? Secure Act 1.0 was passed by Congress, signed by the president, which did away with the old stretch IRA rules. When a person inherits an IRA from the decedent, the inheritor now is going to be subject to taking out required minimum distributions regardless of the age of receipt and pay tax on the money that had never been taxed before. What Secure Act 1.0 did was change the rules and said you can't just spread that out over your lifetime. You have to take all the money out of that inherited IRA by 10 years after you received it. Well, if you receive it at age 40 or 50, you're in your high earning years, and then all of a sudden you've got to pull all this taxable money out of this IRA or get a 25% tax penalty. Well, guess what? There's a charitable solution for that. It's called a testamentary CGA. Testamentary CGA is set up during the life of the donor, but not funded until the donor passes away, and it's often funded by very large IRA accounts. And so the IRA beneficiary is now the charitable gift annuity contract. And upon the death of the donor, the custodian of the IRA passes the money over to the charity offering that testamentary CGA and begins making CGA payments to the recipient, to the heir who inherited this amount, and spreads that tax liability ratably annually over their lifetime, just like they used to be able to do with the old stretch IRA. The difference is, of course, at the death of now the new income beneficiary, whatever's left in that account does go to the charity or charities of the decedent's choice when they set that up. A very useful tool in the estate planning arena today. The real hot topic, of course, today among the baby boomers is the legacy IRA rollover QCD funding CGA. Whew, that's a mouthful. Some staffer in Congress dreamed up this title Legacy IRA Rollover, which it is IRA assets that are now allowed to be pushed out in the form of a QCD into a life income agreement, either a charitable gift annuity or a charitable remainder trust, although with the 50,000 limit per year, per lifetime, index for inflation up to 54,000 this year. There aren't too many folks that want to set up a charitable remainder trust for 54,000 and not be able to add to it. So the CGA is kind of the obvious rollover technique for a life income agreement for the baby boomer over age 70 and a half, who can set that money aside out of their IRA and not pay tax on the whole 54,000 up front. Essentially, they're spreading that tax liability annually over their lifetime based on their age when they start. So with that, let's take a look at, well, most of the gift annuities are funded with cash. I think we're all aware that Dr. Russell James keeps telling us there's a lot more money in non-cash assets than there are in cash. And he provided us with this little chart from a group called Tiger 21. It's a research organization that researches the money and the habits of high net worth families. And this chart that they put together shows that the bulk of their wealth, of course, is not in cash, about 10, 11%, but the bulk of their wealth is in the top half, it's either in real estate or in privately held companies, private equity. The rest is in public equities, which probably includes the retirement plan assets, and then a smattering in other small asset classes. So again, Dr. Russell James reminds us that 90% of the wealth in this country is not held in cash, yet 80% of all charitable gifts come in the form of cash. Makes no sense to him or to me or to anyone else. But you have to be cognizant of that and be encouraging donors to think about non-cash giving as a benefit to them as well as to the charity, because that non-cash asset balance on their balance sheet is much larger than what's in their checkbook. So types of illiquid gifts that really work well when you're trying to fund a CGA would be real estate's kind of the big one, commercial real estate, residential farmland, etc. And then next would be privately held business interests. And of course, that's when Brian set up Decamai Foundation to handle these types of gifts in 2003. A lot of the work that we do at Decamai Foundation is taking in private interest gifts of S Corp stock, LLC units, partnership interest, etc. It's a dream of many Americans to either own a home or to start a business. And many times a business owner starts a business in the garage, and 35 years later, they're about ready to retire, and that little business that they started with $10,000 worth of stuff is now worth 6 or 7 or 8 million. And so they make wonderful charitable giving opportunities by sharing some of that with their nonprofits. Art and collectibles are also viable. They're tangible personal property. But you can fund a gift annuity with art and collectibles, and sometimes even publicly, certain types of stock owned by a donor might be restricted. That can happen if the restrictions are known. We can use mineral rights and royalties, but even oil wells, that works. And then how about commodities? I happen to be in Des Moines, Iowa, in the Midwest, and there's two things that we grow in Iowa. You know what they are? Corn and old people. And they go well together with gift annuities. And I'll show you an example of a case study where I used 45,000 bushels of corn to help fund a gift annuity for a retiring farmer. And course, crypto is a hot topic again today, and we can fund gift annuities with crypto, and beyond Bitcoin and Ethereum, you know, there are 15,000 types of cryptocurrencies. So Charitable Solutions has mechanisms to help convert crypto into cash to fund the gift annuity. So there's a lot of resources out there on your donor's balance sheet that they don't see in their checkbook, which they normally go to when they're wanting to make a contribution to your organization. Our friend Russell James did a research project that he published back in 2018. The project was he reviewed, I bet he had some of his students do this, 1,990s of nonprofits over a 5-year period to take a look at the organization's giving based on how much giving was in non-cash versus cash. And what they found was that the more non-cash gifts that came in a given year, the giving pie grew dramatically. Conversely, if the non-cash gifts shrunk and more came in cash, the pie shrunk as well. So it's pretty obvious that we need to be really taking a look at helping our donors recognize the vast resources they have in their illiquid assets on their balance sheet. So let's talk about the benefits of funding a CGA for the donor with some illiquid assets versus cash. A lot of times there's hidden value on their balance sheet that they don't even think about as using non-cash assets to turn into a retirement account, like a CGA or a CRET. But we can use non-liquid assets to fund a CGA that sometimes you can't even use for a CRET, such as S-Corp stock. The tax efficiency as a certified financial planner, I get into tax efficiency. The tax efficiency for the donor is huge when they use an appreciated asset to fund a charitable gift, particularly a life income agreement, because they get to use as a charitable tax deduction the fair market value of that asset. Plus, they get to defer or avoid recognizing up front all that capital gain that has grown up over the last 20 or 30 years that this asset's been growing. And if they were just simply going to sell that, they're going to lose about a third of it to a capital gains tax, which then goes to the government as a charitable gift that really was mandated. And guess what? The government doesn't send thank you notes like you people do. So when we can gain that kind of tax efficiency to help donors in certain stages of planning in their estate and retirement planning, it's a wonderful opportunity. Sometimes we find a donor might have a high concentration of a non-liquid asset on their balance sheet. Usually it's real estate that they've had for many years. I'm working with a donor right now that's got a $4 million convenience store. That's the end chain of about 6 1035 exchanges that he's been doing over the last 20 or 30 years. That's worth $4 million. Guess what his basis is? $135,000. Because what happens when you own that type of real estate, you depreciate it, and that lowers your basis. So we've got a huge capital gain that we're going to use to put into a life income agreement. So that helps to diversify his portfolio and turn that rental income that was going to end in about 10 more years when the lease expires. It's going to turn it into a lifetime retirement income for him and his family, with a nice planned gift associated with it that becomes part of his estate plan. Also, a gift annuity, of course, can accept S-Corp stock because it's owned by a charity, not a trust. And that's not allowed for CRTs. If you put S-Corp stock in a term remainder trust, you blow the S election, and that's not very helpful for the other shareholders. And of course, what we can do is provide income for the donor to convert an illiquid asset into a stable income stream. And in my experience working with many clients in my financial planning business over the years, I found that once people hit their late 60s, early 70s, they're interested in 3 things: income, income, and income, in that order. They want income. They want stable, dependable, predictable income. They're done kind of playing the stock market and looking at things go up and down. They want stability. And guess what a charitable gift annuity does? Provides fixed, stable income for the life of the donor. It's like a charitable pension plan. And so when you can take an illiquid asset that may or may not be producing any income and turn it into a stable income stream, it's a big win for the donor. So if you're a nonprofit issuing gift annuities, the issue is, are you going to accept illiquid non-cash assets to fund a gift annuity? Well, you got to look at your gift acceptance policy. What does it say? Many, of course, say we'll take cash and marketable securities to fund a gift annuity, and if you want to do anything else, we'll run it past our board. And often when it goes to the board says, no thanks, too much risk. So that's an issue. And so maybe if you want to try to accept more non-cash gifts, you might have to amend your gift acceptance policy if you can get the board to go along with you. Then the charity does have to really consider, if we're going to accept these kind of assets, do we have the liquidity necessary to handle that? When you take in a gift of a piece of real estate, it doesn't sell the next day necessarily. I wish it would, but usually doesn't. You've got liquidity issues that you've got to handle some expenses maintaining that property until you can get it sold to gain the liquidity from the sale of the asset. So how much liquidity does your nonprofit have that they're willing to dedicate toward receiving these kind of illiquid gifts that require some maintenance until they're finally sold? Another issue is this marketability of any illiquid assets that you take in, real estate or privately held stock. Again, it doesn't sell the next day. Sometimes it takes a couple of years, depending on what's going on in the marketplace. So you have to have the wherewithal to be able to help maintain that property, possibly even begin making gift annuity payments before the property is sold. Then the other issue is, of course, the donor has to get an independent qualified appraisal of these assets because they're not publicly traded. You can't look up the value of a privately held company in the Wall Street Journal every day. And so you need accurate independent appraisal because that's what the gift annuity deduction is going to be based on. Now that's usually on the back of the donor. I know they like to have you pay for their appraisal, but they really need to pay for it themselves because they're the ones that need it for their tax reporting. Then, gift annuities are regulated not by the feds, but by each individual state, usually the state insurance and securities department. And some states, like New York, won't even accept tangible personal property. And you have to look at whatever state you're registered in to offer gift annuities. If you're a college or university with alumni over the country, you get to realize that you get to talk to a lot of different state regulators about what their rules are in accepting illiquid non-cash gifts. Then some states even ask about what your reserve requirements are if you're going to offer gift annuities and whether illiquid assets count toward that reserve requirement. So these are all aspects that you have to think about if you're going to start accepting illiquid non-cash gifts to fund a gift annuity. Kind of a little note here: if you really aren't capable of accepting illiquid assets for a non-cash gift, you might say, well, let's set up a flip chair remainder trust, and then we'll do it that way. Okay. Flip chair remainder trusts are good in certain circumstances, but they don't fit every situation, especially if it's a very small amount. In fact, in my opinion, if you're going to set up a chair remainder trust, if you don't have at least 500,000, you should probably be looking at a gift annuity anyway because of the startup cost and all the administration that goes with it. So these are all aspects that you need to consider as a nonprofit issuing gift annuities funded with illiquid non-cash gifts. So let's assume that you're going to be going ahead and doing this. Here's the process that it takes. But we start with, what's the value of the asset? If a donor writes a check, you know what the value of that is. But if they're offering you a piece of real estate or privately held stock, there needs to be an appraisal. And of course, appraisals of property are one thing. Appraisals of businesses are another thing, especially if that business also owns property. You might have to end up with two appraisals, one for the business valuation and one for the property it owns. And that's where you have to start. And then before you accept it, however, once you see the appraisal, you need to do some due diligence to say, do we want to take this? Can we sell it? If the donor sat on a particular piece of real estate for 5 years and couldn't get it sold, what makes you think you're going to have any better luck? So you have to do some due diligence to see if the asset's even marketable, because you're likely not going to hold it. You're going to sell it to help fund the gift annuity contract. Some charities could possibly discount the annuity rate to allow for mitigating some of that risk, because you take in $1 million property to fund $1 million gift annuity. By the time you get through all the sales costs and closing costs, you might only end up with $900,000 for yourself. Well, if the annuity rate is 6%, you might offer that donor like a 5.6% rate, which really is the equivalent of 6% on 900,000. Frank Minton has spoken many times on using that technique to help mitigate some of the risk by the charity taking in that type of an asset. You may have heard Manuel Colina, attorney in Baltimore, talk about using a put technique when you're taking in privately held stock and that type of thing, where the gift agreement could allow the recipient charity to put that asset to a third-party buyer. It sounds like a pre-arranged sale, but he was able to get a private lettering or a regulatory declaration that says you can actually do it. I don't have that number listed here, but I believe we have that that we could offer you. That's a pretty sophisticated technique. It's not used very often, but we've used it a few times and it does work. And of course, another approach to help lower your risk is to consider as recommending the donor defer the gift annuity payments for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, giving you, the charity, a chance to sell the property, to find a buyer for the privately held stock or find a buyer for the real estate. They don't always agree with that, but if they do, it does help you manage that risk of that time delay between the time they make the gift and the time they're to start receiving cash annuity payments. Another potential option that we use occasionally at National Gift Annuity Foundation is reinsurance. Basically, you're taking part of the asset and reinsuring it with an insurance company. Now, you can't really do that until the asset is sold, but it does help mitigate the risk to your organization. I was talking to a charity the other day. They've got about 20 gift annuities is all. And 80% of the value of those 20 gift annuities is on one donor's life. That's a problem, especially if that gift annuity happens to be a couple $1 million. Because that's certainly going to be the annuitant that's going to live to 110, drain their account, and cause you to have to make those payments to the annuitant out of your own pocket because the gift annuity value is all gone. So you can reinsure part of that risk by moving some of that risk to an insurance company. You still make all the payments to the donor, but at least you're getting some income from the insurance company on a guaranteed basis. Brian Klons is an expert in doing the reinsurance where needed. And what we do at National Gift Annuity Foundation is for illiquid assets, particularly real estate, we'll provide a provision in the CGA contract that allows us to adjust the value of the CGA contract from the appraised value after the sale takes place. So we take in $1 million property, and the donor gets a deduction based on $1 million. We start making payments at $1 million, but when the property sells 8 months later for $900,000, our contract allows us to reduce the payments based on a $900,000 value and go forward from there. It's a pretty sophisticated concept, but our legal department has been able to put that together and gives us a little more room to be and not have to sell the property immediately at a fire sale after you receive it, so you can get the full value out of the property by waiting a little longer for the market to correct. Then once you got all the values figured out, now you got to transfer the property. And of course, there's a legal and administrative steps to doing that. When you're taking in real estate, you're going to transfer the deed from your donor's name to the name of your organization. And once you have that under your ownership, now you're responsible for keeping the lights on and keeping the grass mowed and trying to get it sold. Then you finally issue the contract to the donor, and you define these terms and income payouts. Is it going to be deferred? Is it going to be reduced, etc. And then you seek to liquidate the asset to fund the annuity payments, and you do that as well as you can, as fast as you can. But you never know how long that's going to take. So there's your process. It's a lot different than receiving a check from the donor that turns in, you cash it the next day, you issue the CGA contract and start making payments. That's easy, that's simple. But these illiquid assets are usually much larger than a cash contribution to a CGA. wanted to share a couple of case studies. This one we did last year. We had a couple that moved from the Midwest to Hawaii 27 years ago. And when they got there, they did two things. They bought a house to live in, and they bought a house across the road to rent. Rental property is pretty good in Hawaii. A lot of people want to rent vacation homes there and so on. So we got an appraisal for this rental property now 27 years later at 1.2 million. They paid 250,000 for this property 27 years ago. So a huge amount of capital gain. And they didn't take long to figure out if they sold that property, they were going to lose about a third of the sale value to a or involuntary charitable gift to the federal government in the form of capital gains tax. So they talked to a particular nonprofit that said, can you turn this into an income stream for us? And the nonprofit was a Hawaiian nonprofit. And they said, well, we do gift annuities, but we don't take real estate. So they called us and that brought us in to provide that service on an outsourced basis. And we were able to do it. It took us 5 months to sell the property. It's kind of interesting. And during that 5 months, it's interesting how the buyers will dictate what you need to do to the property to make it saleable. We had to cut down some palm trees that were in the way and do some other improvements and so on, all of which takes capital. But we were able to do that, and then finally got the property sold for $1,050,000. So in our contract, we've got the arrangement whereby we can make the adjustment, of course. And in this case, these folks are a little younger. They're in their mid-60s, and we're actually still working. They just wanted to get rid of the rental property while the market was good, and they got tired of fixing toilets at midnight. They got what we call landlord fatigue. So they didn't really need or want the income right away, so they deferred that income for 3 years, which also gave us some comfort level in being able to get the property liquidated in plenty of time to make their payments. So the donors were very, very happy. They've got actually more net income to spend we'll have out of this deferred gift annuity than they did out of the rental property themselves after all expenses. And they don't have to fix toilets at midnight. They were very happy. The Hawaiian nonprofit was very happy. They got a wonderful planned gift that's going to be coming to them at the death of these donors. So everybody wins. This is a kind of unusual case that does surround real estate again, but we have a widow down in Laguna Beach, California, that had a beautiful house facing the ocean. And if you've been to Laguna Beach, you'll understand that those homes are very valuable. And $7 million was her home. And guess what? That was basically her major and almost only asset. Yet she was in poor health and really absolutely did not want to go to a nursing home. She said, I'm worth $7 million in this house. I don't want to go to a nursing home, pay all those expenses. I want someone to come in and take care of me. So what she did, a national charity brought this to us. She donated the home to the charity now with a retained life estate, which gave her a huge income tax deduction equal to the present value of the future value at her demise. And then said, can you turn that value into a gift annuity? And they came to us and we said, we can do that. So we now own the property subject to her living there for the rest of her life. And we took the value and turned it into a monthly annuity for the rest of her life. Now, we have to take that money out of our pocket to make those payments to her, but we will recover that with interest when she finally passes away because we own the property and then we'll sell it at that time. So what a neat thing that we could do for this woman that had the wherewithal, she felt, to avoid going to a nursing home, but she had to get a little creative to make it work for her. So I told you I'm from Des Moines, Iowa, and we grow corn and old people in Des Moines and in Iowa. I had a charity call me a couple of years ago. They had a good donor who had just turned 80, and he said, I'm done farming. I've done this all my life. I'm done. So here's what happens with farmers. They don't pay much income tax during their lifetime because every year when they sell their corn, they have to declare that as taxable income. But in that same year, they can buy next year's inputs, seed, fertilizer, fuel, and deduct it against this year's income. So they're just always rolling forward their income tax. And as a result, they don't pay much tax until the year after they retire. So that he retired at age 79 and did his harvest in the fall. All that grain was in the bins on his farm. Sometimes they store it at the grain elevator, but he had it on the farm and hadn't sold it yet. They wait till the spring when the commodity prices usually come up after they decline during the harvest season in the fall. So now he had all this corn in the bin in the spring, and he said, "Boy, if I sell this corn, I'm going to get hit with all the income tax on it, not at cap gain rates, at ordinary income rates, because it's tangible personal property." So he started talking with the nonprofit, and they came to me and said, "Can we help this person spread that tax liability over his lifetime with a charitable gift annuity?" I said, "You bet." So what we did was we wrote the gift annuity, and we had him deposit the 45,000 bushels of corn into our account at the grain elevator where he would sell it. So instead of him selling it, we sold it. Well, guess what? We're a nonprofit. We issue gift annuities. And so we didn't recognize that as taxable income. However, because it's tangible personal property, each year when he gets his annuity payments, that will all be 100% taxable at ordinary income rates. But he was really glad that he didn't have to count another 275,000 of taxable income all in one year because he had nothing else to deduct against it because he didn't buy next year's inputs because he was done farming. You see how these gift annuities can really help people make good decisions in their planning and execute things that help them and help their charity all at the same time. So he made a wonderful plan gift. It's interesting to note, since that time, he found some other appreciated assets and set up another gift annuity for another charity. He loved it so much. So it's really interesting how these things can grow and progress. I'm going to stop there to see if we have any questions that's come in, Barbara.
I don't see any questions, John, at this
Wow.
point.
Okay. Must be clear as mud. Well, with that, I had a couple of things I wanted to add here, and that is this whole Secure Act 2.0, that passed in 2022 and went into effect 2023, that allows a person age 70 and a half to make a qualified charitable distribution into a CGA up to 54,000 a year. And of course, it can go directly from their IRA to a CGA, just like a regular QCD goes directly from their IRA to a charity. Don't have to recognize it as taxable income like you would if you just pull it out of your IRA. But I'm finding there's a lot of confusion between a QCD and an RMD, and donors get those mixed up. So I'm on this crusade to educate everybody on how they make the mistake of saying, I want to just contribute to a CGA my RMD for this year, which might be $27,000, say 73. Well, if they contribute 27,000 from their IRA to a CGA, that works. They'll get an income stream based on 27,000. But the other 27,000 up to 54,000 once in a lifetime amount that's limited, it goes away. You can only do this once in your lifetime. It's not once a year. And any unused amount doesn't carry forward to the next year because you can't do it next year. You have to do these QCDs into a life income unit all in one year. You can do multiple ones with multiple charities with multiple CGAs, and it can't exceed 54,000, but you can only do it once. So and so the donors and many of the gift planners are missing this. And so when I get a request for to help charity set up a gift annuity that's funded with IRA assets and it's for less than 54,000, I go right back and say, is that all that the donor has in their account? If that's all, that's fine. But if they have more than 54,000 for their benefit, they need to do the whole 54,000, which reduces the value of their IRA account on which future RMDs are going to be calculated. It's just, you got to take what the government gives you while they got it, while they're giving it to you, because they're not going to give it to you later. So here's an example. This is Otto. He's age 85. His RMD for this year is about $18,494, based on their life expectancy and the amount in their IRA account. He had a $300,000 IRA account. So he said, I want to do a gift annuity for $18,494. Well, he can use up to $54,000 of his $300,000 IRA to do this deal. And he can only do 18,494. It covers his RMD for that year. He won't have a penalty, but the balance of 54,000 goes to waste. It's gone. He had a tax benefit that he virtually did not use intentionally or unintentionally, I guess, because he didn't know the rules. So here's what would happen. He would leave $35,506 of QCD capabilities to go into a CGA on the table, and it's gone. And therefore, guess what? The charity doesn't get that either because he only put 18,000 into his CGA instead of the whole 54,000. So my plea to you is that donors ask you about doing a legacy IRA rollover from their IRA to their to a gift annuity, and they say, I want to put my RMD into a gift annuity. Stop right there and ask them, how much is your IRA worth? And do you know that you can put more than your RMD in to lower the future value of all your RMDs, but you can only do up to 54,000 once in a lifetime per spouse. Okay, would you do that for me? You'll benefit, and so will your donor. With Charitable Solutions, we're not really big on helping you market CGAs. We're an implementation firm. We implement CGAs for organizations that can't or don't want to do their own CGAs, so we outsource them for you. And so Brian asked me to share an experience that we've had with one of our nonprofit clients that has really gotten a hold of CGAs and is really running with it, to share kind of what they do for marketing, because we're not marketers, we're implementers. So let me introduce you to Jonathan Boyskin, who really wanted to be here today. He's executive director of HIAS, which is started in 1903 as the Hebrew Immigration Aid Society, a long-time charity, does a great job, but they weren't doing gift annuities. And Jonathan came to us to say, we're not really equipped to do gift annuities. Will you do them for us? Yes, we will. And so on his own, he started doing some promotion. So he started promoting CGAs in December of 2023, just not even 2 years ago. Since that, in the next 18 months, he's closed 21 CGA contracts. Heck, that's more than some charities have in their whole pool, totaling $1,030,000 in contributions. Isn't that amazing? Average age of the annuitants was 79. Average size of the CGA was about 50,000. And in 12 donors' cases, 12 of these 21 donors, their lifetime to-date giving was $1,300 total. And now all of a sudden they're doing an average of 50,000 into a CGA. Pretty interesting. So I said, Jonathan, what's going on over there at HIAS? How are you doing this? And I tell you, I invited him to join us today, and he had to come up to a board meeting. Can you imagine having to go to a board meeting when you could be doing a webinar? Well, he does have his priorities set straight, so we'll have him back another time. So here's what he did. Back in February of 2024, he started by just doing a kind of a test webinar with his own legacy society. I think he had a couple hundred people in his legacy society, those that had made some kind of a planned gift commitment, to kick off this planned gift marketing campaign, right? He brought in, to do the webinar, he didn't do it himself. He brought in a highly qualified national speaker that most of you would know, and that kicked it off. So then a couple months later in the spring, he did a follow-up to that marketing campaign with another webinar, bringing back the same speaker to a broader audience. And it was really on planned giving, but he included CGAs in the mix of options discussed, which they had never been able to do before because they never offered gift annuities. They do now through NGAF, National Gift Annuity Foundation. Then in the summer of last year, he put out together an ad campaign. So they created two ads, a half-page color CGA ad without any CGA rates, and a full-page color CGA ad with the rates. And he emailed 100 people who currently had CGAs with a query for their advice about what would work best to promote CGAs. He did like, what do you call it, a focus group. So what do you guys think? I'm thinking about doing this. Well, 45 responded to his survey with guidance. And in the process, two updated the request information, adding to their future intentions. They had forgot to tell him that they already had increased the request that they had previously done. So they got them thinking, this focus group, about their own estate planning. But then after that, he mailed a full page ad with a few corrections made by these survey people, and that included the rates to 1,000 people who had visited their website during that spring marketing campaign. That marketing campaign that pushed people to his website, and so he tracked who they were, and so he sent 1,000 ads by mail to those 1,000 people. One donor responded by doing a $100,000 CGA immediately, and 6 months later put another $100,000 into a current endowment fund. You start getting the donors down the line of thinking about plan giving through CGAs, which are income producing, and they find other reasons to benefit your organization through other plan gifts. It kind of opens that door even wider. So that's what he did last summer. Then last fall, it's time for another marketing campaign. You know, most of us think about doing one of these a year. This is now number 3 or number 4 that he's doing. He brought in the great national speaker, did another webinar, including CGAs in the mix, and then at the same time did a full page ad in 2 print publications read by his constituents in their group who were over age 70 and a half, kind of focusing on the legacy IRA rollover arrangement. Okay. Wow. Then this spring of 2025, he did a CGA mail and email campaign that resulted in another 600,000 of CGAs. And he's kept us busy this year because it's cumulative, you see. He didn't just do a one-shot deal and say, that didn't work. He kept at it. But you know what's impressive to me is that his organization gave him the resources to do all this. These webinars were not free. The 2 print publications were not free. All of the design were not free. So they dedicated some resources corporately to this campaign, but look how it's paid off for them. Okay. Yeah, so that this spring they did another webinar. And then this summer, he mailed to 3,000 donors who were over age 65 who have been helped by the organization, been touched by the organization. So you see, the net keeps getting broader and broader and broader. And then also he, in his newsletter to his Legacy Society members, included this full page ad with the current CGA rate. So he's getting a lot of mileage out of this full page ad with CGA rates. I would tell you, myself as a donor, I get 1 or 2 of these kind of brochures a month from the various charities that I support. And when those that include CGA rates, it gets your attention. You don't set that piece of mail aside like you do other pieces of mail that just have verbiage. I'm just sharing my own personal experience. So anyway, isn't that amazing how what results that Jonathan Boykin has had in just a short 2-year period in developing CGA, new CGAs with some marketing efforts. And so when I do with nonprofits who are using us to run their CGA program, I say, if you market CGAs, you'll write CGAs. If you don't market CGAs, you won't write CGAs. You can't just sit by the phone and wait for the donor to call. 95% of the people out there don't know what a CGA is. They know what a commercial annuity is because their financial advisor and others are trying to sell that to them. They don't know that a charity can do the same thing, but even on a more tax favorable basis. So my message here is we got some wonderful products in the form of a CGA that helps donors solve personal planning problems. But you got to let the donors know that you're doing this. And we don't sell marketing services. That's not what we do. But of course, you know, there are many national good organizations that do that. Will help you with your website and your marketing campaigns and your print and your email, etc. And so please consider doing that. If you're not getting enough CGA traction, think about Jonathan Boykin and his marketing. So we got plenty of time here for lots of questions and answers. Anybody that's left. Barbara, anything else come in so far?
A couple have come in. Susan Manning asks, if CGAs are regulated by state, how does that affect federal income tax deductions?
Oh, good question. the CGAs are regulated by the states, but not the tax circumstance. It's the nature of the CGA. What has to be in your contract, disclosures, and your reserves. That's how they regulate you to be able to offer CGAs. But the federal government just treats a CGA contribution as a charitable contribution. And of course, you only get to deduct the present value of the future remainder based on your age. That's going to go to charity at your death, etc. That's just another charitable deduction under the current tax code for charitable deduction. So the states don't regulate the deductibility at the federal level. And of course, most states also offer deductibility of charitable contributions on your state income tax. So they're not regulating the tax aspect of a CGA, they're regulating the security aspect of it. It's usually the state insurance and securities division that you have to register with to be able to even offer CGAs by your organization. Separate and apart from the registration you have with the states to solicit donations. Those are two separate registrations. And of course, some states are pretty lax on this. They say, just let us know you're doing CGAs, you'll be fine. Some states like New York, California, Hawaii, Arkansas, and Maryland make you jump through 1,000 hoops to be able to offer CGAs. Here at National Gift Annuity Foundation, we're eligible to offer gift annuities in all 50 states. To get registered to do that in California a few years ago, it took us 2.5 years of registration process to get approved. Hawaii's the worst. You have to put several $100,000 in a building on the island before they'll let you offer CGAs. We've done that. Okay. And so it's just state by state, and it's where the donor lives, not where the charity lives, that governs that regulatory stuff. So I hope that answers your question, that the tax impacts are neutral based on federal tax law, not state registration. Do you have one more?
Okay. Yeah, here's a good Charitable Solutions LLC question from Amanda Foxman. Do DAFs offer CGAs? If not, is there a regulation against it?
The answer is, I don't know of any DAFs that offer CGAs, but I don't know if there's any regulation against it. We get many referrals from the large Fidelity and Vanguard and Schwab, all those DAF people. When their donors say, I'd like to do a CGA, they say, we don't do that. Talk to the guys over at Charitable Solutions, National Gift Annuity Foundation. And I'm not exactly sure why they don't do it, but on the other hand, to offer gift annuities is kind of almost a separate process, a separate business. It's got, administrative capabilities with it, liability that goes with it. You really got to be set up to do it. Now, you'd think that Fidelity, Schwab, and Vanguard could be set up to do that, but they don't. I don't know that there's any rule against it. They're a nonprofit. Any 501c nonprofit that's properly registered with the state where the donor lives is capable of offering gift annuities. I think it's more of a business decision. It's just kind of if you don't do a lot of it, you don't get good at it, and they're really in the donor advice fund business, not the charitable gift annuity business, would be my best guess. Okay. If anyone else has any further information on that, please let us know. Never been asked that question before, but it's a good one.
Amanda also says she's new to the topic and that John is providing an excellent education. So,
oh, great.
Kudos to John.
Here's my deal. I was a CFP for 50 years, working with high net worth families. I never had to sell them anything. I didn't have anything to sell. I was a fee only planner. But I found that if you educate people and help them learn that they don't know what they don't know, and you fill in that gap, they'll make great decisions. They'll buy all kinds of stuff, whatever you have information to sell, etc. In this case, CGAs. So I'm all about education. Thank you, Amanda, for that kudo, because I truly believe that you as gift planners, if you will just educate, you don't have to sell. There's too many good things to share. A gift annuity, in my opinion, helps the donor as much or more than it helps the charity. Wow, they can convert illiquid, highly appreciated assets, avoid capital gains tax now, get deductions, get life income that they can't outlive. Wow, as a financial planner, that's a wonderful tool. Guess what? Financial planners can't sell CGAs. They're not nonprofit. They're really not nonprofit. They make lots of money. So education is truly the key. So I'm kind of on this big kick to educate the world about CGAs, particularly IRA rollover CGAs and others. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, one more about the legacy IRA rollover CGA from Lauren. What do you share with donors who only want to do the lesser amount to fund an IRA CGA, even when they know they can do the larger 54,000 amount?
That's a good question because I'm getting it way too often, and many gift planners are reluctant to really go after that. I would do one or two things. I would say, please go back to your tax advisor and ask them their opinion on whether you should do more than the RMD, number one. And number two, why would you turn down a gift from the federal government? You are turning, if the federal government's giving you a tax break, why would you not take that? Because what they don't understand, I believe, is that by doing as much as you can into a legacy IRA rollover into a CGA, you reduce the remaining balance in your IRA account on which all future RMDs are calculated based on your life expectancy. I mean, I was just chagrined that you could only do once in a lifetime for 50 grand. The original legislation that our industry proposed was $400,000 every year. Well, we ended up with 50,000 extra inflation one time. Better than nothing. It's a foot in the door. Hopefully, future legislation might change that. But why would you not take advantage of something that is going to cost you later if you don't do it? I know it's marginal. It's not a lot, but it's the theory. So my theory is that the government giveth, you better accept, because they're not going to give you very much. That's my best answer, but I think it really is important to push it back to their tax advisor, financial advisor, who could probably explain that better. Most people just don't understand RMDs, period. They just know that if they don't take what they're supposed to take, they get a 25% tax penalty. They also know that, are starting to know that QCDs directly to to the charity of up to 108,000 per year does qualify, but they're not taking advantage of that either, unless they should always use up their RMD and not their QCD capabilities before they ever write you a check, in my opinion, especially for the non-itemizers, which 91% of our population does not itemize anymore. I was just at a conference this morning where that was reiterated. So for your non-itemizer donors, which is 90% of your donors, if they're over age 70 and a half, they should always use QCDs to make their charitable gifts before they write you a check, because they can't deduct that check that they're writing you anyway, because they take the standard deduction of $15,000 a person and $30,000 a couple. So it's a mechanical tax thing, and what I'm finding is that donors really don't understand income tax very well. You have to educate them, and if you're not the right person to do that, tell them to go back to their advisors, and you can support that. Does that help? I've got some more
Great.
information here that Babs wants to talk about.
Yeah, I just want to thank you all and remind you these of the three pieces of the charitable solutions puzzle that can help you. As we said at the beginning, this is we can help if you need us, right? So there's we're not the only people who do some of these things, but we sure do have a lot of experience doing them. So please give John and the other charitable solutions team members a call if you're thinking about this. I will, and also remind you, here's some of the many. I have more than 50 free webinars there. I think John's telling me it's more than 60 now,
60
perhaps.
now,
I
yeah.
need to update my slide. So we just listed a few of the other CGA webinars here, and then a list of topics to remind you that you'll find a lot of good information about these other topics too. We're working on getting our YouTube channel sort of categorized by these topics into playlists, so you'll have an easier time sorting through them all to get to the ones that you need. I want to remind you that we do these webinars monthly, and the next webinar is October 7th and 9th. And that program will feature Paul Casperson, part of our Charitable Solutions team, and his guest, Caleb Nepper, who's from the University of Florida. And they're going to do some sort of demoing of advanced ways to use AI in gift planning work. So probably everybody's dabbling in it. Some of you, I hope, are really diving into it, but Paul and Caleb have been really diving into it. So they will share their screens and show you some great ways that you can use AI to help with your
That's a
gift
little
planning.
earlier than we normally do it in the month of October to avoid conflicting with the CGP conference in Indianapolis, the 15th through the 18th, I think it is.
That's right. John and
That's,
Paul,
we'll be
Brian,
there.
lots of other charitable
We'll be
solutions
there to
people.
shake your hand if you show up at the conference.
That's right. So that wraps us up today. Thank you all so much for attending, and thanks to Paul. Please reach out to us if there's anything we can do to help you. That's what we're here for. So thank you so much. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. Have a good rest of the week.